Every empire built on blood and ambition crumbles when the world turns against it. In this video, we'll unravel the epic falls of One Piece's greatest villains, how their arrogance, greed, and hubris sealed their fate. Let's start with Whitebeard, the man who tried to save the world but was crushed by the Marines. His final battle at Marineford wasn't just about power, it was a father's desperate plea to protect his crew. The Marines, led by Admiral Kizaru, had no intention of letting a pirate king live. They opened fire with cannonballs, and Whitebeard, bleeding and defiant, raised his sword to shield his son, Luffy. His last words were a warning, "Don't let the world be destroyed," but the world didn't listen. Whitebeard's death was a turning point. His crew, the Whitebeard pirates, scattered across the seas, and the Marines' brutality sparked a rebellion that would shape the future. The cannonball that killed him wasn't just an attack, it was a symbol of the world's refusal to tolerate peace. Now Blackbeard, the pirate king who thought he could rule the seas. He built an army of monsters, but his ambition was his undoing. The Yami Yami no Mai gave him power, but it also made him a target. His final moments were a cruel joke, his own cursed sword, the haki-infused Wano country, and the explosion that ended his reign. He'd gathered the Yonko, the four kings of the seas, to create an empire, but his arrogance made him a liability. When Luffy finally confronted him, Blackbeard realized his mistake. He tried to control the world, but the world controlled him. His death wasn't just a battle, it was a pyre of his own making. The explosion that consumed him was a reminder that even gods can fall. Kaido, the beast who ruled the beast's pirates, had a final meal that was both a feast and a funeral. He tried to kill his own son Ai, and paid the price with his life. The final strike came from Luffy, who said, "You're not a monster. You're just a man who lost everything," but the real irony. Kaido's last meal was a feast of his own regrets. He'd once been a noble man, a warrior who fought for justice, but his greed and thirst for power turned him into a monster. His death wasn't a battle, it was a family tragedy. The Marines, the Straw Hats, and even his own son had to confront the truth. Kaido was a man who lost everything. His final moments were a mirror, reflecting the cost of his choices. Now Doflamingo, the man who built an empire on lies. He thought he could control the world with his donor powers, but his arrogance made him a target. His kingdom, the Baroque Works, was a prison of lies, and his final words were a bitter confession. "I was just a man who wanted to be remembered." The Marines, led by Trafalgar Law, turned his kingdom into a tomb. Doflamingo's death wasn't just a defeat, it was a reckoning. He played the role of a villain, but in the end, his empire collapsed under the weight of his own deceit. His final moments were a reminder that even the most powerful can be undone by their own hubris. Finally, Marshal D. Teach, the man who outsmarted himself. He created the Yonko to protect his crew, but his own past as a pirate haunted him. Luffy's final punch wasn't just a strike, it was a reckoning. Teach's death wasn't a defeat, but a twisted victory. He died knowing he'd saved the world, even as his body turned to ash. His legacy was a paradox, a villain who became a hero. The world didn't just end with his death, it changed. Whitebeard's legacy lives in the Marines' new ideals, Blackbeard's fire warns future pirates, and Kaido's tragedy reminds us that even monsters can have hearts. Doflamingo's empire crumbled, and Teach's final moments proved that even the most powerful can be undone. These deaths didn't just end villains' lives, they changed the world. Whitebeard's death sparked a rebellion that would shape the future. Blackbeard's pyre became a symbol of the cost of ambition. Kaido's final meal was a feast of his own regrets, a reminder that even monsters can be haunted by their past. Doflamingo's empire collapsed, and Teach's death proved that power is fleeting. The world didn't just survive these villains, it adapted. Their stories are more than just battles, they're lessons. Whitebeard's sacrifice taught the world the value of peace. Blackbeard's fall warned that power without purpose is a curse. Kaido's tragedy showed that even the most monstrous can have a soul. Doflamingo's lies exposed the dangers of deception, and Teach's death proved that even the most powerful can be undone. These villains didn't just fall, they left behind a legacy that would echo through the ages. Their deaths weren't just endings, they were the beginning of new stories. And that's the real power of the sea. it doesn't just carry ships, it carries the weight of every story, every choice, every life that's been lived and lost. So when you watch One Piece, remember, every villain's fall was a story of how the world fights back. And that's the real power of the sea. Now let's dive deeper. Whitebeard's story isn't just about a single battle, it's about the weight of a man who tried to save the world. His crew, the Whitebeard pirates, were more than just pirates. They were a family bound by loyalty and shared purpose. Whitebeard's leadership wasn't about fear or control, it was about trust. He believed in his crew so deeply that he was willing to die for them. That's why his death at Marineford was so devastating. The Marines didn't just kill a pirate king, they killed a father, a brother, a leader. His final moments were a mix of rage and despair. He knew the world would never accept peace, but he still fought to protect his son. The cannonball that ended his life wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of the world's refusal to let go of its greed. Whitebeard's death didn't just end his life, it ignited a fire in the hearts of the people. His crew scattered, but their spirits remained unbroken. They carried his legacy forward, proving that even in the face of death, hope can survive. Blackbeard's story is a cautionary tale. He was a man who believed he could rule the seas, but his ambition blinded him. He gathered the Yonko to create an empire, but he never realized that power without purpose is a curse. His final moments were a cruel irony. He was the one who created the Yonko, yet he was the first to fall. The Yami Yami no Mai gave him strength, but it also made him vulnerable. His final battle with Luffy wasn't just a fight for power, it was a fight for survival. Blackbeard's death was a pyre of his own making, a reminder that even the most powerful can be undone by their own hubris. His final words, "I'm the Pirate King," were a desperate attempt to cling to his identity, but the world had already moved on. Kaido's final meal was a haunting moment. He was a man who once fought for justice, but his greed turned him into a monster. His death wasn't just a battle, it was a family tragedy. He tried to kill his own son, but the world reminded him that even monsters can have hearts. The final strike from Luffy was a moment of clarity for Kaido. He realized that his life had been a cycle of revenge and regret. His final meal was a feast of his own regrets, a reminder that even the most powerful can be haunted by their past. Doflamingo's empire was built on lies, but his final moments exposed the truth. He was a man who wanted to be remembered, but his lies only led to his downfall. His final words, "I was just a man who wanted to be remembered," were a bitter confession. His empire, the Baroque Works, was a prison of lies, and his death was a reckoning. The Marines turned his kingdom into a tomb, proving that even the most powerful can be undone by their own deceit. Marshall D. Teach's story is a paradox. He was a villain who became a hero, a man who outsmarted himself. His final moments were a twisted victory. He died knowing he'd saved the world. His transformation from a pirate to a hero was a lesson in redemption. His death wasn't just a defeat, it was a symbol of the cost of power. Teach's final words, "I did it for the world," were a testament to his belief in the greater good. His legacy was a reminder that even the most powerful can be undone by the weight of their own choices. These villains' deaths didn't just end their lives, they changed the world. Whitebeard's death sparked a rebellion, Blackbeard's fall warned of the dangers of unchecked ambition, Kaido's tragedy showed the cost of greed, Doflamingo's empire crumbled under the weight of its own lies, and Teach's death proved that even the most powerful can be undone. Their stories are more than just battles, they're lessons. Whitebeard's sacrifice taught the world the value of peace. Blackbeard's fall warned that power without purpose is a curse. Kaido's tragedy showed that even monsters can have a soul. Doflamingo's lies exposed the dangers of deception, and Teach's death proved that power is fleeting. These villains didn't just fall, they left behind a legacy that would echo through the ages. Their deaths weren't just endings, they were the beginning of new stories. And that's the real power of the sea. It doesn't just carry ships, it carries the weight of every story, every choice, every life that's been lived and lost. So when you watch One Piece, remember, every villain's fall was a story of how the world fights back. And that's the real power of the sea.